Now let's write another function that involves looping over indices. This function is named shift_left. It has a single list parameter and modifies that list. So the return type is none type. None is returned. The modification to the list is that each element of the list, or each item, is shifted one position to the left, and the first item is shifted or moved to the last position. A precondition to this function is that the length of the list is at least 1. Here's an example list that has 4 strings, strings A, B, C, and D. The strings will be shifted to the left, moving B from index 1 to index 0, C from index 2 to index 1, D from index 3 to index 2, and A from 0 to the last position where D originally was. Therefore, the resulting list is B, C, D, and A. In the example, I showed moving B to the position that A was in, and then C to the position that B was originally in. One thing that I didn't explicitly show in the example is that when we move B into A's position, we need to keep track of A, what value is at index 0, in order to later be able to move that value to the last position in the list. The variable first item is what I'm going to use to keep track of this. So it gets the value at list index 0, and we will then be able to take the value from index 0 and put it in the last position later on. The task that we're doing is this shifting of items starting from 1. So I'm using range again. The first index that I will work with is index 1. And the stopping position is the length of the list. The task is that we would like to take the list at position I minus 1 and set it to the element to its right. So in other words, if 1 is the first value of I, we're going to take the list at position 0 and have it get the list at position 1. So once all of the elements have been shifted to the left, we then want to take the element that was originally in the first position and move it to the last. The last element of the list can be indicated using -1, and we will set that to our first item variable, which hung on to the original value at index 0. At this point, list L has been modified and the function can exit. Let's call the function. In the shell, I will create a list with the same example values that we used. We can call shift_left, passing L as the argument. And now when we examine the contents of L, we see that the values have indeed been shifted to the left, with the first item being moved to the last position. We will once again use the Python visualizer to visualize the execution of this function call. This will help us gain a better understanding of the code, and it's something that you should be doing as you're writing your code. The function is first defined, and on line 17, the letters variable refers to a 4-element list of strings containing the strings A, B, C, and D. Now the function shift_left is called. The function's parameter, L, refers to the list of strings that was passed as an argument to the function. On line 10, first item is a variable that gets the value of the list at index 0. First item refers to the string A. The for loop begins on line 12, and the initial value of I is 1. I refers to 1, the first value generated by range. In the body of the loop, the list at index 0, I minus 1, gets the value of the list at index 1. So I list at 0 is currently A, the list at 1 is B, and we're about to assign the list at 0 the value of the list at 1. Now we can see that the list at 0 refers to B, and so does the list at index 1. That's why we use the first item variable to keep track of the value that was initially at list at index 0. We're going to need that later when we move the first item to the last position. Back to the loop, on line 12, the value of I will be increased. So I now refers to 2. And the list at index 1 will get the value that is currently at the list at index 2. List at 2 refers to C, and list at 1 is about to be assigned that memory address. So now both list at 1 and list at 2 refer to the C. I gets the next value, which is 3, and the list at index 2 is about to be assigned the list at index 3. So we have a list with B, C, D, D. And it's time to replace the last D with the A. That's what happens on line 15. The list at the last position will be assigned the value that was originally at index 0. This is the last line of our function call. So the function finishes executing and returns, then letters is printed. So notice that what was printed when the function returned was the value none. And now letters with the values with the strings B, C, D, and A is displayed.